It's hard to do different ones, isn't it?
When I say Cameron, you say out!
Cameron! Out! Cameron! Out! When I say Cameron!
When I say Tory,
you say out!
Tory!
Out!
Tory!
Out! When I say Tories! Out! Say out! Tories out! Tories out! When you say Tories, out, out, out!
And out of all our public services, we've got to demand a service that's free of charge, free from profiteers, free from PFI, protected and assured for the people. And none of this will end with that. We've got our students who've been out marching in London days ago, who've gone back to their colleges, gone back to their communities. They're getting organised. They should not be saddled with debts. And the truth is that saddling with them with those debts has saved us just a pittance. By putting this burden on the next generation, we have left them struggling for their future. While the government lies about saying we need an austerity economics to protect their future. All the time. This government has borrowed more in the last 4 years, over £430 billion, more than Labour did in their 13 years of office. And with the disability crisis that we have, with people, the most vulnerable citizens in our communities, the Independent Living Fund affects 18,000 severely disabled people. Personal independence payments that are meant to be replacing disability living allowances will make about 2.5 million people 20% worse off. The coalition policies towards disability benefits are absolutely disgraceful, inhumane and unacceptable. The benefit system itself is in chaos. There are 600,000 people awaiting employment and support allowance assessment. 300,000 people awaiting personal independence payment assessment. Only 1 in 1,000 due to be covered by the universal credit system has actually been turned onto the new system. The cost of delivering Ian Duncan Smith's universal credit scheme has cost on average £225,000 for each of those people who would be due to be put on that new allowance. An utter disgrace. He said his reputation would depend on the success of this scheme. Well, I'll tell you, it's cost the taxpayer over £612 million already. On top of that, we know we've got a growing housing crisis. We've got good news from E15 mothers, the New Era estate people, from the poor doors, from residents' associations organising around the country. They are beginning their fight back, and we need that to happen. But we have an energy crisis, a cost of food crisis, a cost of living crisis. We've got a general election next May, and I want you all to help people to register. Make sure they are registered to vote. Work with your communities, work with your trade unions to make sure everyone has a vote. But don't think that this is going to bring us the solutions that we desperately need. People are dying, people's lives are being destroyed, and the future of our planet, the resources that we need, the biodiversity that we rely on, all are at risk. And if we don't work together to plan a different future, we won't make it. Do vote, do call hustings, do find out if you've got a decent candidate, but don't think that we'll have the urgent changes we need after May the 7th. We won't. We must find another way to bring about change in our communities, in our workplaces, on the streets. And we must work together, even if we work together in different ways. People are hurting. The revolution is theirs right now. Their radical plans that they put in place under the fear of the banking crisis, and through their wicked lies about immigration, about the unemployed, about the disabled, and about the cost of our welfare state. Their attacks on our civil liberties, their attacks on our trade union activities. We should be very angry. We must become very direct and very active. We need to organise at every level to stop people people from being hurt, from their lives from being further devastated and destroyed. We need to protect people on the front lines of these government attacks. If our governments are working in the interest of the wealthy, the corporations or individuals, we must remove them, replace them, and force change or find another way to plan our future. Thank you everyone for coming.
It's a certain kind of genius to end up with the biggest programme of spending cuts for a generation, 2 generations in this country, and yet still have on the other side borrowing rising and rising again by 10% over this year. The reason it's happened is very simple. He's not getting the taxes in, and he's not getting the taxes in because most of us are facing falling wages for the last 6 years. This has been the longest sustained decline in living standards for most people since records began in 1856. You simply cannot find another period in British history where ordinary people have suffered this long a period of decline in their living standards. And this is the glorious success that George Osborne has presided over. And of course at the heart of it is exactly what Mick Burke just said. The heart of austerity is a very simple programme. It's a smash and grab raid by the rich on the rest of us. It means the wealth of the richest 1,000 people has doubled in the last 4 years in this country, whilst the rest of us have seen falling living standards, have seen closures of public services, have seen the decline that austerity represents. If Osborne wanted to seriously do something about it, there's 2 things he can stand up and do tomorrow. One is very simple. It's start to clamp down on the tax avoidance by the wealthiest, by the big corporations. There is at least £120 billion out there every year that he can get, that he can use to spend on our public services. 2, he can immediately increase the national minimum wage from the derisory sum it is at the moment, nowhere near enough to live on in a place like London, to the living wage, still not exactly riches, but at least enough to get people some degree of dignity when they work. He can do both of these things, and he can start to make a difference to how most of us have to live our lives here. He won't do any of this. He won't do any of this, but he's committed to austerity. And that's the politics of this. The politics of this is that this is a smash and grab raid by the rich, and it's up to people like us to stop them doing this, turn the economy around, to try and have a society that works for the benefit of most people, not the 1%, not their friends, not the bankers, not those at the very top of society. Thank you.
Stop pushing! Thank you.
Have you got any advice or proposals for George?
Well, I think there needs to be a massive U-turn in terms of what the government's doing right now. We need an emergency investment in all of our public services. We need investment in terms of building affordable housing. We need more jobs. We need more of all of these kind of things. And because that's what's really going to turn the economy around. When people feel like, when people actually have more money, they spend it in the economy, and in that way it gets better. At the moment, because they've cut back everything, it's sucked any demand out of the economy, and that's why we're heading towards another financial crisis.
Okay. Just briefly, obviously the government are fixated on the deficit. What would be your advice to them about that, in terms of maybe reframing it or making it a bit of a less of an issue? Or I just wanted to get your thoughts on the deficit.
Well, I think in terms of the deficit, I mean, there's easier ways to solve it than cutting people's living standards. I mean, if you look at the wealth of the richest 1,000 people in Britain has doubled since the recession hit. Now, this is absolute madness when the majority of people are facing their living standards have been dropping constantly for 7 years now. Now, this isn't acceptable. You can solve the deficit in other ways, but the truth is we need to address the real issue, which is that people are getting poorer and poorer and poorer, and